What's going on, guys? This is Waylon Martin bringing you another weekend wrap-up. This week's competition, actually the first of two, is going to be the Vancouver Pro 212 class, where today we're going to go over the top 5 and a few of the surprises as well. Starting off in the first place position was Mark Dugdale. Mark has had a really stellar year so far, winning a show just a few weeks ago in Chicago, and before that getting 4th place prior in Toronto. So this placing here was really great for him. Actually, this win here was really great for Mark, and I don't believe it will give him the momentum he needs to, say, shock anyone at the Olympia per se, as Mark's always been one of those top tier guys. It's a great placing for him nonetheless. When you look at Mark by himself, you might not necessarily understand why he would win the show. You could see how he could win the show, but not necessarily why, if that makes sense. But once you put him in this total lineup together where there's no elite guys in there with him, Mark's really able to shine. Mark's physique is definitely that of a blue collar type bodybuilder, and he has a very lean, dry, and dense physique and dense appearance to his physique. And so while he may not have necessarily the muscle belly pop, he has a lot of mass. And so even though this is a 212 division, I would consider him a mass guy for the division. His back shots are crazy developed. He has really great hamstring glute tie-in striations, especially at this contest where he was very dry on top of being in condition. And what really stands out about Mark is in his back shots, especially that back lat spread. It's very, as I said previously, he has very dense muscle, and that's displayed in his back. The mass of it alone overshadowed and overpowered a lot of the competitors next to him. And so Mark really was able to stand out with that. And so while those other guys with good backs at the show, in combination of everything else, Mark had it come together nicely. If there's one knock on Mark, it would have to be his quad sweep at this show. Not because his quads are necessarily bad, but like I said, he has that density and dryness to them. And so the guy who finished in 2nd place, he had almost the opposite of that. He had very bulbous quads, and so next to Mark's, it really stood out. Mark seemed to adjust in his posing a little bit and compensate for this eventually, just to best present his physique, but initially it was a little bit of a glaring difference. However, every other detail Mark had in check. Mark pretty handily won this contest, and though he had a good finish, it doesn't necessarily have bigger indications yet for the Olympia since he was already qualified. And I don't believe a win here makes him any more dangerous at the Olympia. It's a good finish nonetheless. He brings home another check, and that's always good for the athlete. Again, when Mark does get to that Olympia stage, or a showdown as they like to call it, he's going to have to face the elite of the elite there, and I believe it would be a little bit easier for Mark to get overlooked, seeing as how he already got 4th place earlier in this year in Toronto. And so at a stage the caliber of the Olympia or showdown, it would make even more sense if his placings begin to slide a little bit. In 2nd place was Korean athlete Nam Eun Chao. At last year's Amateur Olympia in Hong Kong, China, Nam won his professional status. And so in his rookie season, he's definitely made a splash in the IFBB ranks. While Nam's conditioning was a little bit lackluster compared to what we've grown accustomed to in the 212, it was still enough to get him into that 2nd place finish above some guys who were actually in better shape than him. And what really elevated him to this position were his quads. Amazing quads that really stuck out. I had heard and seen pictures of this guy, and I thought they were overblown, but they were truly impressive. If there's one knock, however, and this is what differentiates him from a guy like Dugdale, is that they did not have the definition, separation, or quality per se that someone's like Dugdale's has. So while they do have this very impressive mass that draws your attention and your eye on the stage, it doesn't necessarily always mean that's the best look. Now, if he can combine this type of mass with Dugdale type density, it's gonna be crazy. Well, Nam had deep separations. He did not have striations per se in his glutes. And so he looked very good, and he did have lines in the glute hamstring area. However, it wasn't as detailed as we know he can be. And even if we haven't seen it yet, we know what the physique is capable of, and his physique is capable of more, which makes it even more impressive in some ways. In only his rookie season competing, the sky's potentially the limit for this guy. I'm really looking forward to seeing more of him going into the future. In 3rd place, Marian Cambal. The Slovakian athlete actually won a 212 event last year when he won the Moslani Pro. This was a weaker contest because it was an international event. However, a win is a win nonetheless. And though he went on to get 16th at the showdown that year, he still qualified for the event, which is a statement in itself. This contest, he looked good again. However, it wasn't enough to knock him into that number 2 or number 1 spot. A lot of similar attributes in comparison to Dugdale as far as the benefits of their physique. Very conditioned, especially compared to the issues in separation that Nam had. And so the Marian Marian and Dugdale had similar positive qualities to their physique. Dugdale's were heavier or more so than Marian. And so Marian, that was enough to bounce him down to his third place spot and Dugdale into the first. Marian was holding a little film of water and possibly fat associated with it at this contest. And going into the future, he will always probably be a threat at this type of 212 event. However, at a larger one such as the Arnold or the Olympia, I don't ever see him really pushing that boundary per se. An impressive physique, nonetheless. He has got a really strong, most muscular, and it's a very aesthetic physique. It's just not enough of these elite guys. And if Dugdale's gonna have a problem, Marian would especially. In fourth place, Fernando Almeida. Almeida was very impressive at this contest, and at different contests could have been even placed higher pretty easily, because he was one of the few guys whose back actually did compare to Dugdale's in some ways as far as detail and size for the class. His overall frame is a little bit smaller. His back shots are pretty nasty in a good way, and his front shots are very aesthetic. This aesthetic was very similar to that of the fifth place finisher, and so it likely didn't stand out as much in the eyes of the judges or gain as much value to them. Crazy condition in his back shots, glute, hamstring, low back, everything tied together really well. He's one of these guys that maybe never be pushing at the top ranks of this division. He is dangerous at shows such as this one. This is demonstrated by him being the fifth place winner, who had just recently won the Europa Dallas in the 212 class, but was relegated fifth place here in Vancouver. This was simply an issue of being overshadowed at this event, not due to lack of talent or lack of ability. It was just he met other guys with similar levels and similar skill, and that's what happens when you're a professional athlete. A great front double, great back shots. It's hard to really critique this guy. Put him in the lineup next to everyone else, his strengths start to diminish a little bit comparatively. Again, the ringer here for this fifth place finish probably was Nam coming in second, because while the two have similar frames, Nam's quads were so overpowering, it made his legs look a little bit weaker. When in reality, in most lineups, they're fine. They're enough to win the contest. The surprise of this contest had to be Auguste. And maybe not necessarily surprised because his placings haven't been so stellar as of late, but the guy has so much talent and it stinks to see it start to not get rewarded. This is because even though Al's capable of winning any contest in the 212 division from the back, he has a pec injury that's becoming more and more obvious, and it's starting to hinder the overall flow of his physique. Although even in his front shots, if you ignore that pec, he has a great flow, great condition. And that was something I was really impressed by Al at this show, is his conditioning. His back shots, he was separated, striated, which is not always the case for him. And I was really proud of him in some ways, because even with this injury, he's pushing full forward. Now, unfortunately, it wasn't rewarded at this contest, and it shouldn't necessarily be, because if you have an injury, you should get knocked for it, Kevin Levrone. That doesn't mean that you aren't a great bodybuilder, and I would never write Al off, because he has the potential to show up at any one of these lower tier 212 events still and wreak havoc. Guys, that's all I have for you tonight. Hopefully we'll get the open event for you, but if not, this is Waylon Martin with Bodybuilding.news.